Good evening, and thanks so much for joining us tonight. I'm Samantha Sullivan. We are following breaking news this afternoon. A former high school athletic trainer in Miles City is arrested today on child pornography charges. Connor did mention we have breaking news at this hour. MTN News has learned that President Trump will be making another visit to Montana, this time to Billings. Sources tell MTN that the president will be in Billings next Thursday to speak at a rally at Metro Park. It will be the second time in 2 months that the president has visited Montana. The two people dead after a suspected murder-suicide in Helena have been identified. Well, Jay and Janelle, initial reports came in of shots fired at officers at a residence here on the 1600 block of 2nd Avenue North. We understand that the suspect or suspects have now barricaded themselves inside the residence here. And then, of course, he has his event tomorrow to talk about the tax cuts and those policies. That's open to everybody. But as you can see right now, the stairs are going up to the plane. The vice president will make his way off that plane and onto the tarmac here in Billings soon. As you mentioned, the vice president is expected to be the keynote speaker at this morning's event, where the topic of conversation will be the impact of the tax bill. If the president is Republican, midterm elections tend to lean Democrat. The people who came out in force to vote for the president may stay home, and it seems like the president is trying to combat that by rallying support for his voters across the country.
Well, that's really the message.
And these lovely teeter-tottering monkey bars?
Yes, good work.
Long story short, the getting back up took some serious time. Connor has to clean their pens before taking Buttercup to get cleaned up. In case you are wondering, goats do not like baths.
Turning now to the weather scene, Bob, NOAA just released its winter forecast, and it sounds like we won't be breaking last year's snow record, which I'm not complaining about.
106 inches last year for snowfall.
On Wednesday, participants will eat as many hot dogs and buns as they can in 10 minutes. Last year's winner, Joey Chestnut, wolfed down 72 hot dogs. And fresh from New York, I don't know how you got here this quickly, Russell Nemitz joins us.
I didn't quite make the semifinals.
I can't imagine. You weigh yourself first, what, to find out how much you weigh after 72 hot dogs?
It's something else. You'd certainly weigh a lot more after eating 72 hot dogs, that's for sure.
Well, this transitions perfectly into Ag News. What do you have coming up for us?
We're going to talk about WOTUS. No, it's not a new dish for your 4th of July barbecue tomorrow.
Happy New Year's Eve, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us here on the 9 o'clock news. I'm Samantha Sullivan. Here's what's topping our headlines across Montana tonight. Who owns your DNA? Why one Billings legislator is pushing to make sure it's always you. And it was an eventful year for the Helena Fire Department, a full review ahead. And if you live in Montana, it's going to be a snowy start to 2019. How is the weather affecting your area? We'll get to all of that in just a minute, but first, the search for a 3-year-old boy missing in the Musselshell River has been suspended tonight. Musselshell County Undersheriff Sean Lesnick says the boy and a 5-year-old girl were along the edge of the river around 11:15 this morning. The boy then fell into the water and has yet to resurface. Lesnick says the conditions are very difficult to work with, and the ice is up to 6 inches thick in some places. Crews are being forced to use chainsaws and drills to break up the thick ice. Cameras are also being used underneath the surface in an effort to locate the young boy.
Today is Fight Procrastination Day because we want to give equal time to both people who don't want the time and people who do. If that makes any sense. Does that make sense? Yeah, I think kind of.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. No, it's a good day, though. After you were late yesterday for something, fight procrastination, be maybe a little early today. You can maybe meet in the middle somewhere.
Aren't you kind of putting off reading the news headlines right now?
Why do you have to call me out like that?
It's Fight Procrastination Day.
All right, well, see you later, Ed. I'll get to the news.
Okay.
The biggest mystery in Washington this morning is who the senior Trump aide behind the anonymous New York Times op-ed titled, "I am a part of the resistance inside the Trump administration." The Times is defending its decision to allow the author to contribute anonymously, saying their job would be in jeopardy if his or her identity were known. And last night, President Trump seemed to confirm that in a series of tweets. CBS's Laura Podesta has details. Montana Governor Steve Bullock is headed to Iowa later this week, which could signal a possible White House run. Online newspaper Politico shared the news Tuesday night, saying he's headed east as he considers a run for the Democratic presidential nomination. So far, at least 7 7 Democrats have thrown their hats in the ring. A happy ending for a stuck buck found in a Billings Heights yard this morning. FWP came to the rescue and unstuck the buck, but sadly had to saw off half of his antlers.
OMTN had our cameras rolling when the animal was freed. Billings resident Ken Ostrom called FWP when he saw some rustling in his yard on Lane Street this morning. The buck struggled for what could have been hours, finally resting on the ground at one point.
Those with FWP came to the rescue, taking a saw to the buck's right antler and sawing it off so the animal could be freed. He then jumped a couple of fences and was on his way. And what has been a grueling and hard-fought race between these two candidates, taking some time to talk about the issues in Washington, even tearing up when he spoke about his work serving veterans here in Montana and across the country. But his main message in that press conference was about working together, both here in Montana and when he goes back to Washington. So again, Senator Jon Tester elected to a third term in the U.S. Senate after a long night of waiting on those results. And as you can see, after a week of preparation, after hours and hours of coverage, the president has left Billings. Air Force One now en route to North Dakota, then South Dakota, and the president will make his way home to the White House in Washington, D.C. And more coverage of his stay, that interview, and his departure coming up on our Q2 530 News. This has been a Q2 News special report. Thanks so much for joining us, and have a great day.
Q2 Samantha Harrelson takes us inside All Train Fitness, where your workout can reach new heights.
I hadn't always been into fitness, and once I got into it, I was gung-ho, all in, got my certifications, opened my gym in my parents' garage out in Shepherd, and then just slowly progressed into this building.
Trevin's dreams started years ago with a unique style of personal training.
When you work out here, you have a personal trainer every single day to design a workout for you based on your goals and your needs and your level.
As his business continued to grow, so did his vision.
A lot of our clients are into obstacle races, and some of them just want an extra challenge.
Last year, Trevin, along with his dad and father-in-law, built this obstacle course at their gym, All Train Fitness, all up to specs with the challenges you see on shows like American Ninja Warrior.
You know, being up to specs, I think people watch American Ninja Warrior on TV and they make it look so easy, those guys do, but they don't realize that a lot of those guys are professional rock climbers. They've been training, 4 to 6 hours a day. You get somebody off the street, and I don't care what kind of training program you do, it's a real ego check.
It sounded like a challenge, so it was time to put my skills to the test.
So if it was your first day here, what I'd do is I would take you over here on these monkey bars over here and just start you on this little 8-foot section.
Oh my gosh.
In my defense, these monkey bars are wider and farther apart than the ones at your average jungle gym. And these lovely teeter-tottering monkey bars?
Yes, good work.
Long story short, the getting back up took some serious time.
Dude, good work.
Oh my gosh.
Out of breath, but feeling accomplished, Trevin decided I needed to be brought back down to reality. Salmon ladder?
See if you can even just budge it.
No, definitely not. A few more fails. And we were finally at the warped wall.
Our warped wall is 14'3". One of the shows 14'6", or a little bit shorter. All right.
Not gonna happen.
Exactly. You're almost there.
Oh, so close.
There is hope for her. I would say her biggest weakness is her upper body. And I would say her biggest strength is probably her mind, because she definitely got on these obstacles and gave them all a try, where a lot of people won't even attempt them because mentally they're just not strong enough.
I'll take it. With weak arms and a strong mind, Samantha Harrelson, MTN News, Billings.
Initial reports came in of shots fired at officers at a residence here on the 1600 block of 2nd Avenue North. We understand that the suspect or suspects have now barricaded themselves inside the residence here. Billings Police, SWAT team, U.S. Marshal's Office, and the probation and parole officers are all on scene at this point. Just about 15 minutes ago, the Bear arrived on scene. That's the large armored vehicle shared by the Billings Police Department and the Yellowstone County Sheriff's Office. At this point, authorities have not said what started the standoff, and we do not know if officers fired back at the suspect or suspects inside the home. Returned fire at the suspect. St. John says they were able to retreat and no officers were hit or injured. There is a male inside. He is barricaded inside the home. Chief St. John says he does not believe anybody else is in the home at the time. He does have some sort of weapon, the weapon that he fired at those officers with, and they do have information he may have an assault rifle with extended magazines possible. Right now, multiple agencies are here. That's local, state, and federal authorities. Authorities are inside the armored vehicle at this time. They've approached the home and are attempting to make contact with the suspect. Chief St. John says negotiators are on their way to the scene at this time. And for now, we'll send it back to you, Jay and Janelle.
We start with Q2's Samantha Sullivan, who's at Billings Logan International Airport, where dozens of workers will miss a second paycheck come tomorrow. Samantha?
Russ, it's a difficult situation that many people around the country are facing, and it's especially impacting our airports. The security officers at TSA are considered essential, so they have to be here working every day, but they're not getting paid. The folks here at the airport says even though there are difficulties, they're getting the job done. It was very quiet all morning, Zoe, up until the last hour when everything just started to come together at once. Are things getting back to normal downtown now? A Montana woman thought she found a way to make some extra money on the side, but what she actually found was a scam.
Well, thankfully, she caught what was going on before it was too late.
Of course, having the president here as a Republican, a big deal that he is visiting Montana, and a big deal that this administration has been in the state 3 times in the last 2 months. The asphalt here is about 130 degrees, so if 100 was hot, it's even hotter out here on the asphalt. Some of those rides that are metal and plastic that have been sitting in the sun all day, those seats are about 120 to 130 degrees. So if you've got kids who are excited to go on the rides tonight, that's definitely something that you want to pay attention to. Make sure they're not grabbing onto any of the metal. This is what we call the breakfast of champions. Nothing better than dessert for breakfast.
Well, they said too, it's kind of like French toast because really it's just
it's bread.
And raisins are healthy.
It's basically a
Boy,
breakfast.
you guys are really convincing yourselves, aren't you?
It doesn't take much, Ed. It was just 2 months ago yesterday that the president spoke to thousands of supporters in Great Falls, Montana, and Vice President Mike Pence touched down here in Billings at the end of July. All 3 of these visits have been in support of Senate candidate Matt Rosendale, who is running against incumbent Senator John Tester in November. And as you can see, wheels are down here in Billings. Just yesterday, you voted against a spending bill that would keep the government open, saying it was irresponsible. But you also voted yesterday to make more tax cuts permanent. Why do you support those cuts if they could greatly increase the federal debt? He's got some good stats to go along with his pick. Ozzy has chosen correctly 5 out of the last 6 times. The only one he missed, he mistakenly chose the Denver Broncos over the Seattle Seahawks, but I don't know. I'm certainly not complaining about that.